Madison Beer, healthy habit. Let's talk about it. How y'all doing? Welcome to Let's Talk About It, Music Reviews Season 12. How y'all doing? Welcome to the show. Guys, we got a pretty good episode for you today. You know, I'm out here at the night vibe. It's been a little bit since I've done kind of like a chill night vibe, you know. But I'm out here in the night. You know, I thought for this episode we can be out here. And honestly, guys, I'm having a really good time, you know, with this little, like, 3-album thing. You know, usually when I have so much music to review, you know, usually I'm like, all right, you know, I like this album, I don't like this album, I don't like this album, I'm tired of hearing this album, I'm tired of hearing this goddamn song. Not with this fucking album. Not with this one right here. And this was honestly my third selection. You know, I got other albums to listen to, and this is one of those I've kind of turned on, and I was like, wow. This is a pretty nice experience. You know, we'll get into it, you know, next week when I do my actual album review. But, because I got to listen to it, you know, again and again and again. But we got this song, which I want to review today. This song right here is called Healthy Habit. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about it. Starting off with the instrumental. Now, this instrumental, I would say, is pretty simple. You know, it's just kind of having these kind of airy, kind of soft, kind of lo-fi like piano chords, just kind of, you know, doing its thing throughout this whole entire track. You know, it's nothing crazy. You know, it kind of just gets the job done, in my opinion. But honestly, overall, I do like the sound of it. You know, I wish there was maybe, you know, some drums. You know, maybe some, like, you know, switch-ups on the 808s, you know, something like that. But I'd say for what it is, for like a little 1 minute, almost 2 minute song, which I'm surprised it's not even 2 minutes. You know, this is a pretty short-ass song if you actually think about it. I'd say overall, I really do enjoy what I'm hearing, you know. It's nothing too bad. It actually sounds pretty nice. I'd say this is a decent instrumental. You know, there's not much to it, you know. There's nothing where I'm like, holy shit, this sounds fucking, you know, the greatest thing ever. But I'd say for what it is, for how it sounds, you know, those airy-ass, like, piano chords, I'd say it gets the job done. I'd say it sounds pretty fucking nice. But let's move on, though, because I'm going to be honest with you. I think one of the things that I really enjoy about this song is the fact that, you know, you move into the verse, the opening verse. And I do like how, you know, it's kind of, you know, singing in a perspective, you know, with the lyrics and stuff like that, you know. This song's all about, you know, do I want to try it again? You know, do I want to get into, you know, another relationship? You know, I've been in one before and it was fucking terrible. So now do I want to start again? That's kind of the overall meaning of this goddamn song. Pretty good meaning. You know, I like the overall vibe here. I like it when artists, like, express, like, feelings like this. You know, the Kilroy album, which, man, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't do an album review of that one because I actually had a lot of thoughts. I was gearing up to do it, and then, you know, a lot of things happened. J. Cole happened, you know, Young Boy dropped his album, and, you know, A$AP Rocky dropped, and, you know, I just couldn't get to it. But that album, you know, I'll just talk about it right here. You know, if I was reviewing that one, you know, the new Kilroy album, you know, the way that's, you know, expressed, you know, about a relationship, I think that's really cool. Now, I'd say the hook on this song, the hook actually is pretty decent. You know, I like how the hook sounds overall. I really like the vocals on here. You know, I like how Madison Beer's singing is, like, really kind of reminds me of that, like, more deeper kind of like R&B type singing. You know, I like this, like, I have to say it again, you know, my favorite genre of all time is R&B. I love me some fucking R&B. Put some R&B on, I'm going to have a good-ass time listening to it. I like how, you know, a lot of newer pop artists are really taking those qualities, you know, taking those, like, the way you hold out notes, you know, the way you add background vocals. I like the overall sound of when artists can really start, you know, incorporating that stuff in there. I really overall enjoy that. And also, I really enjoy the fact, too, that, you know, I hear, you know, those nice-ass background vocals, but then you get deep into the song, and guess what? Holy fucking shit, you get fucking a really long-ass, like, holding out the notes, long-ass, like, vocal runoff, which I didn't know Madison Beer can do a whole-ass vocal runoff, even if it's just a little bit. Shit, better than what Doja Cat can do. Yeah, I recently saw something on Twitter. I know I'm going off topic, but why the fuck not? I saw on Twitter, maybe it was just YouTube, but, you know, I just saw something where it was like, why did Doja Cat's new album V flopped? And, you know, I think that album flopped because of how terribly and how boringly all the tracks were done. You know, when you just do the same shit and call it a fucking day, you know, we're recycling we're recycling rap verses for the whole entire album. Makes every track feel the fucking same. So I just think that's funny, you know. Why did this album flop? Well, why did it not flop even harder? I mean, like, that shit was so fucking ass. I'm so glad I didn't do a bunch of track reviews on it where I sank my time into it. Now, I won't lie. I sank my time into it, you know, listening to it. You know, I had a pretty rough time. But I'm so glad I didn't talk about it as much longer. It's just kind of like one track review and then an album review. That's all I did. But anyways, back to Madison Beer. You know, I really like this hook. I like the vocals. I like how there's a vocal runoff. That's pretty fucking fire in my opinion. I'd say overall Madison Beer for a little short song, it's actually pretty fire. So overall, when we talk about the song, we talk about Madison Beer, Healthy Habit. I really like the instrumental. That, like, you know, those lo-fi chords that sound really fucking nice. You know, there's not much to this beat, but I think the beat gets the job done. Which, hey, you know, if you can make a decent instrumental and some nice-ass vocals, then I'm going to have a good time. Verse and the hook overall were really nice. I love the singing, and I also like the little vocal runoff that Madison Beer does at the end of this. It's just really nice. Sounds fucking fantastic. You know, I'd say Madison Beer 100% killed it. Overall, I'm going to easily have to give Madison Beer's Healthy Habit probably just an easy 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, guys. What y'all think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I don't know. Let me know. If you're on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast at, make sure you follow, turn on notifications, guys. We're dropping new content every single day. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. Guys, you know, recently, you know, I guess I'll just start telling y'all this more. But hey, Season 12 has already kicked off with a good-ass start. You know, 4,000 plays on the new Season 12. We've only done, you know, a few episodes already. And hey, thank y'all so much for supporting this goddamn show. And I'll see y'all later. We got more content coming up. We got Young Boy. We got ASAP Rocky. You know, there's also going to be stuff on, you know, a new Music Friday. We got all content coming out. And I'll see y'all later. You have a good one. Bye.